Well, that pretty much concludes all of the Premier League action for this Saturday, and the title itself is a wrap right now. Janusz Michallik is joining me, and Janusz, Manchester City officially champions of this Premier League season without even having to kick a ball in what would have been their all crucial match against Chelsea tomorrow. But that's because Nottingham Forest managed to pull off a very important win that keeps them safe, keeps them in the Premier League for at least one more season over Arsenal, once title favorites, once everyone, was hoping that they would win to kind of mix things up over the last couple of years. But now it's official. City champions. Arsenal, they couldn't get the job done overall, couldn't get the job done today against the Nottingham Forest, Janusz, that obviously were fighting for their lives. But this result for the Gunners kind of sums up the entire season in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It seems they were in a given mood. Gave Nottingham Forest another Premier League season, and gave Manchester City the title. To be fair, Forest worked very hard and deserved that win today, very much so. But I think it's a great example of Arsenal today, how far away they still are. There was a moment in the season where, we were saying, Arsenal champions in waiting. But I think, I don't know if they understood that this may be this season was maybe the closest they're going to get to that title for a long, long time. And the reason I say that is a great example is because they were missing a lot of players, a lot of changes in the team today. And it, I think, showed how far Arsenal still are. Even, if they have a good summer window, you just have a feeling with the way Manchester City are, and when everybody gets stronger as well, that the lack of depth in terms of quality was for all of us to see today.
Yeah, I think you were just looking at it today because looking at the game, did you feel like it was a case of Forest needing it more? And obviously Arsenal knew that at this point it was all out of their hands because, like we said, City, all they had to do was win tomorrow against Chelsea and then probably against Brighton and then probably against Brentford, which I think all of us expect City to win those matches.
Well, first and foremost, I think, Mikel Arteta, I mean, the big boss, just listening to Arsenal supporters and everybody, and even just watching it, obviously Mikel Arteta surprised everybody with so many changes. When you make those changes, not just in terms of players, but positionally, right? I mean, you completely change the rhythm and the understanding and partnerships on the pitch. And that's why it looked chaotic for Arsenal, where, as you've mentioned, Nottingham Forest, obviously the work rate, the way they play, you look at Olley, who scored, 5 goals in the last 3 games?
Yeah.
He was superb today, 2 against Chelsea, 2 against Southampton. But, in terms of those changes, I was actually okay because, it didn't really matter. Arsenal weren't going to win the title anyway. And Manchester City would have beaten Chelsea tomorrow, in my opinion. But I can sort of understand. And the reason, I'll tell you why I understand that, because we've talked about a lack of depth. We've talked about how many players they need to buy, and there's a limit to that. But you know why I don't care? Because Mikel Arteta, if I had to guess, wanted to find out today if some of the players that you already have can play in the positions that they think they can or should be played, with the exception of Thomas Partey, who was probably saying, boss, why are you doing this to me, right? As a right back, the sort of John Stones of Manchester City or Zinchenko of Arsenal coming inside as a midfielder. He was absolutely lost. But look, Ben White is a center back. He's just been playing at right back because Tomiyasu's been out and for the most part, they didn't have anybody there. But he's a center back. So let's test him there. Jakub Kiwior, by the way, I mean, that looked like 3 in the back on the left-hand side. Why not give Kiwior that chance? Remember, last couple of games when he played on the right side, which he doesn't usually play. He's a left-footed player. So maybe give him that opportunity. And when he was a left back, you know what? Last game in European qualifiers just a couple months ago against Albania, he played at left back. Look, Albania maybe not the best, but neither is Nottingham Forest. So I think that you are okay to do that. By the way, in the second half, we expected changes at halftime. Didn't happen. But even more looking, I don't know if it's by design, but Gabriel Jesus played on the left-hand side because there are many questions about him in terms of a true number 9. That he isn't. He's had a good season before injury and after. So all these changes, and Trossard came inside a little bit as well. So I suppose that if he wanted to find out before buying players in the last couple of games, if these players are capable, not in some friendlies in the summer, but during the Premier League when games matter, at least to the opposition, I'm okay with that. And I don't understand the outrage at all from the fans.
All right, well, let's bring in a very familiar face now in James Olley, our London correspondent. Where there is a London club playing, James Olley is there, and he, of course, is at Forest right now. He's finally gotten to, I suppose, a quiet point, because I bet the ground was absolutely rocking James after Forest secured the win and secured their survival in the Premier League. But this is all about Arsenal, really and truly. You, of course, have been covering the ups and downs of the Gunners this season. This, of course, is a very down note for them to finish on. But it kind of feels like it does sum up their season, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hope firstly you can hear me. They're having a bit of a party here at the moment, because obviously this result means that they stayed up on the Forest, and it's been this atmosphere here today. But I think it says a lot about the title race that Manchester City have been handing the league at the venue where they last dropped points. It was February the 18th when City came here and had 24 shots, I think, and drew 1-1. And I remember covering Aston Villa Arsenal that day. It was the early kick-off, and Arsenal scored twice in stoppage time to win 4-2. And those two results combined really gave, I think, everybody connected with Arsenal a real sense that they might actually not go and win the league from that position, but they might really be able to go and take it right down to the wire. And yet, since that day, City haven't dropped a single point in the Premier League. 11 consecutive wins since they came here in June 1-1. And Arsenal obviously have got on a run now with 2 wins from 8 matches. Really, this result today and the performance was kind of a combination of the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks where they just looked a bit leggy and started to run out of steam. Confidence has strayed away from them a little bit. And they haven't had to will much because of how perfect City have been, literally perfect, only 3 points at the time that they came here to Arsenal coming in today. And those are the differences, I don't think it's fair to say Arsenal bottled the league. I think they've just not been able to last the pace with the team that's been perfect since the beginning.
All right, well, thanks so much to James Olley. We're going to let him go because it is absolutely rocking there as the Forest fans are singing Heaven is a Place on Earth, and I'm sure it is for them indeed. As we said, Nottingham Forest surviving the drop. They'll play in the Premier League come next season after this being their first season back in a long time. Janusz, just to pick up on what James said there, he used the word perfect when it comes to Manchester City, and how now when we talk about Arsenal, we know the jokes will probably be going around and people calling them bottlers and bottling it, but I think it's fair to say that they really came up on the blueprint of what has been the envy of all squads, teams and manager. I think not just for football in England, but I think around the world. Is it just that City is the perfect team at the moment that they make it almost impossible for anyone else to compete with them?
Yeah, and like we've been asking this, did they bottle it or not? But I mean, if you look at historically, I mean, in many of the seasons that Manchester City has won the title, they actually haven't led during the season, haven't been on top. I mean, they're notorious for not being at the top and just finding the form and going on runs in the second part of the season. So that's why I don't think I ever worried, and I don't think you can say that, because you knew that that this sort of period for Arsenal was going to come, and City do this all the time. So yeah. I don't understand the nervousness and any of that. That's why I mean, when it's happening in the back of your head, you says, well, maybe Arsenal can, maybe this is the season that City won. But there came a time in the beginning of this last run where you just say, you look at Manchester City, you see everybody's healthy. They're winning game after game. They're perfect just about in the Champions League. And you look at this Arsenal side, who even if they have everybody available, we're always going to lose points. And Manchester City was always going to find a way to win it. So I don't understand it. I still think it's a good season. Yes, it's a sour taste because in the end they ran out of steam. And frankly, quality. They just did. Even when they were on a great run, some of the players on that team, the starting 11, were playing over the top. So, they were hitting their ceiling. That's why I do think that if there's ever a positive of losing this game in particular, because of all the changes, is that Mikel Arteta found out even more about the players you have. He now understands even better how big of a task this is going to be to kind of get this team. I don't even want to say to a level of Manchester City, because that's going to be impossible in one window. But just thinking ahead and watching what may happen. How will Chelsea change with a good team and a new manager? How is Liverpool's great run in the end, and what they may do? So the task gotten bigger, and I think it's an absolute craziness to think that, as I said, had City had a better start to the season, we're not even having this conversation, because they would have been out of sight, and Arsenal, we would have seen that from Arsenal much earlier. So I think it's Arsenal fans, any logical Arsenal fan would understand that, my goodness, they pay money, go to church every day if they knew they were going to finish second at the end of the season.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, when you think of times where people were ready to sack off Mikel Arteta, and now you look at exactly the run that he's had, the understanding that he's had with the players, how so many of them have come into their own, especially the young ones too. And I suppose the next question for Arsenal would be, how do they pick up where they've left off now? Because like you said, it's unfair right now, given City's resources and the squad they already have, and to think that this summer they're still going to look to strengthen in some sort of way. It's almost unrealistic for everyone else to try and get to that level, at least over the summer. But Arsenal surely will want to capitalize on this. Mikel Arteta will. In terms of how you see him shaping this team so that they can probably give it a better, deeper run. Who do you see going? Who do you see? What do they need resource-wise? What do you see coming?
The worst part about this is that, when you really truly think about it, we just found out that Arsenal are a very average team that overachieved. When I say very average, I don't mean it. Average means 10 play. I don't mean that, but I just think that he saw that the task is going to be bigger. So the first thing is dose of reality. As a manager, you're not going to say, hey, listen, it's going to be hard. We're going to be fighting for top four. You want to fight for the title. But I just think he's recognized. I suspect, of course, he knew that before, but I truly believe that he made some of those changes today to see what players can do in those different positions, perhaps positions that they enjoy playing. And again, I'll mention Ben White, Kivior, and all that. So I think he's realized that he's going to need a lot of help. But I think the targets don't change, because a good center half, and we're hearing, and we've been talking on our show about Declan Rice for months. If he does come in, or somebody of that ilk, I think that's a massive positive. There's going to have to be another center back, unless he does believe, and he's going to put money in Ben White, because he's going to get a proper right back, because they absolutely need it. And Ben White's got a lot of experience, right? So I think if he gets the message that, look, I'm looking at you as a center back next season, occasionally a right back, that could change, although you have to rebuild that partnership. Saliba's going to be there. I still think that. I said it last time I spoke with you, or maybe yesterday on the show. Absolutely a very good, experienced number 9, no questions about it. And even Gabriel Jesus, before the injury, I felt that way. And pieces on the bench for sure. Obviously, I almost think that they need to be shrewd and bring in 3 or 4 players aside of the players that I've mentioned, that you feel confident when you have to rotate. So it's a big task, but as I said before, you're not going to change Arsenal to fight Manchester City again next season in one window. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's pretty scary exactly what Manchester City can, I suppose, accomplish now. Seeing where all the other clubs are, seeing the drop, for example, of Liverpool. We know Manchester United still fighting for that consistency as well. They surely will have to do some work in the transfer window. Arsenal, as you mentioned, there is a rise of Newcastle as well, who in terms of bank accounts have similar resources too. But as we were talking before, were it not for Liverpool, Manchester City would have had 6 in a row. So is this kind of scary to think how much more they can go? Is the Premier League in danger of becoming now a one-horse race?
Well, it is that, right? Aside from Liverpool, who, won that one season and really pushed, Liverpool a couple of seasons as well. I don't know. I think there's going to be a fight. And, it's not like, Manchester City is running away from things. One horse race inclines, like we've seen in other leagues and even in Premier League not that long ago, winning by 10 points, 11-12. I mean, this still is very, very close. I mean, if Manchester City continue to do that over and over, where they, leave it late to win it, I mean, there's going to be a season where they won't. It's as simple as that. What you have with City, and, we have to get past, well, I mean, we don't, but this is not the show for that. We have to get past, where the money is coming from, how much money is coming from, because a lot of teams are spending a lot of money. Manchester United spends a lot of money. Liverpool spends a lot of money. So is Arsenal. We'll see now they'll spend even more. They pay a lot of money in wages. Newcastle United, obviously, we know the new ownership. They're going to spend money. So I think to a degree, just for you and I, because we're here to talk about football, I think we're going to see more of the same. We don't know what the new ownership of Manchester United will be. So it is what it is. We have to mention where it's coming from, if it's good, better, and different, whatever the opinion is. And I think most of the opinion is not great, but that's the lay of the land, isn't it? And it's for everybody. My interest will be, again, some of these teams dealing with the big competitions again. Manchester United, who's going to be the owner? When is that going to be decided? I mean, you want to do your business early. If they don't do the business now, Manchester United may not be able to be in that fight for all the trophies as we think they are. Newcastle, this year, I think they benefited of the fact that they were out of Europe. A whole week to prepare for every game, not a bad thing sometimes for teams like Newcastle. So Liverpool will be stronger. I think we see now what happens when all your best players are healthy. And that's a major reason why Liverpool had such a drop-off, because now when everybody's available, it looks much, much better, although they need it. So it's going to be fascinating. It may very well be one team league in terms of who's going to win it again. But I think it's going to be tight because Chelsea are going to be better. They're all going to be taking points away from each other. And I think at the very least, we're going to have a fight on our hands, in the second part of the season.
Right. Well, as much as things were exciting at the top half of the table, the bottom half, I mean, that's still going on. But let's definitely pay off Nottingham Forest. It was looking dicey for a bit. And of course, they have a huge task ahead of them if they want to continuously survive in the Premier League. But thoughts on how they managed to put it together. And now that we know that they will indeed be playing one more season.
Well, faith in their manager kept him. Everybody was changing it, right? I mean, not only that, but because I look at Forest and I forget how much they spend, but they spend too. I mean, they have 21 new players. So that in itself is not easy, but we're talking about the top, how much they spend. But, there's a lot of money being spent down there. For him, obviously keeping them up and dealing with all the new players, changing and chopping the team. They've had a lot of injuries as well. So I suppose having all these players helped a little bit. But it's not easy, as I've mentioned, to create these partnerships. And so I think you got to give him a tons of credit because I at least thought that they were going to be a team going down. So that, for most of the season, ahead of the season, I had them going down during the season. For most of it, I thought that they weren't going to be able to put this together. But Awoni woke up at the right time because he was hot and cold, good early, most half of the season, not really. Gibbs White, absolutely outstanding. Brennan's been great, and Cooper actually didn't start him again, right? A little bit of doubt for a player that was arguably their best player, or at least top two, right? Top 2, 3. So I think they've done a tremendous job, and tremendous pedigree, of course, tremendous history with that club, great fans, and we've seen that, and we just heard that right after the game. They're still there and celebrating, as you'd imagine. So, I mean, what can you say? I mean, this is, for me, I'm of age. I like historic clubs, so I'm particularly happy that they stayed up.
Definitely, indeed. Well, thank you as always, Janusz. There's still plenty more to talk about, even though the season has been decided already. We know that this is not the first, nor is it the last conversation that we're going to be having about Manchester City or Arsenal or what's to come. There's still actual match days to come, including that. I guess we can still call it a big one, so to speak. Manchester City against Chelsea tomorrow. We'll be having post-match reaction
Coronation.
On ESPN FC. After that, the coronation. Exactly. They love coronations over here, Janusz. We'll see, if Chelsea join in on the festivities? Probably not. I'll be live there at that match, so it'll be interesting to see. But that's the news of the day. Nottingham Forest surviving the Premier League. They've survived the drop. They will be playing at least one more season in the Premier League after the win over Arsenal. Arsenal runners up so far, and Manchester City once again champions of England.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.